Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Superheroes, Movies, and Superhero Movies. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzo.
And today we're talking about Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, released in 2001, directed by Chris Columbus, written by Steve Kloves, based on the novel by J.K. Rowling, starring Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, Emma Watson, Richard Harris, Alan Rickman, Maggie Smith, Robbie Coltrane, and many, many others. Warwick Davis. Vern Troyer was even in this movie. John Hurt. Fiona Shaw. Several people. This was the first Harry Potter film. It's hard to believe that it's actually already been almost 20 years.
It blows my mind. It's ridiculous, man. What's really weird to think about is that this movie came out 2 years after The Matrix.
Yeah. The same year as Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. And just to remind everybody, real quick, that we are recording video for these episodes now. So if you want to watch us talk about Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, you can check us out on YouTube. There's a link in the description of this episode. And if you are watching this on YouTube, welcome. Hi, how's it going?
And you can see my Hogwarts pint glass.
That's right. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel. We'd appreciate all that. So, anyway, back to Harry Potter. I did not see this in the theater. Before we even talk about that, we've been meaning to do this movie for a long time.
Yeah.
And so we finally decided to do it now. But John, this was your idea to do it kind of as our Halloween episode.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I wanted to do a Halloween episode. I honestly thought we had done Sorcerer's Stone already.
Nope.
It's crazy that we haven't, but
but
here we are.
I think we were going to one time, to the point where I watched the movie, but we just never got around to recording it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know if I took any notes that time around, but I do remember watching the movie, preparing for an episode, and we just never did it.
Are you saying I'm a slacker?
Yeah, it was your fault.
Because I remember that too. So
I mean, who knows? I don't know why we didn't record. It could have been either one of our schedules, but for whatever reason, I know that we watched the movie, but we just never got a chance to record for it. So now we are doing that now. But this doesn't strike me as a Halloween movie.
Even watching it again, you don't even see it then?
No, I mean, I understand the witches and wizards part, but for me, this is, and I think it's because it was released in November or December.
Right.
And, you know, there's Christmas time in the movie, but this always has felt more like a winter Christmas movie rather than a fall Halloween movie to me.
Mm-hmm. To me, we discussed this earlier, it's kind of like a Nightmare Before Christmas, where it could go either way or both. Because I definitely get the Christmas vibe for sure. I did see it in the theater. And I was not a Harry Potter fan when I saw it. Nor was I after I saw it.
So why'd you go see it?
So interesting story. My sister had a friend in school who was from, her family was from England, and her mom was friends with my mom and mentioned to my mom about Harry Potter and was like, you know, this is a really good book for kids. You should check it out for your daughter. Not to mention, I'm pretty sure she said, you know, it's just a good book in general. Like, anyone can enjoy it. So my mom took her advice and went to the bookstore and asked them if they had Harry Potter. You remember the bookstore in the mall, right? What was that?
There was like a Walden Books.
Yeah, I think it was Walden.
Is that what it was?
Yeah. So it wasn't like, you know, a hole-in-the-wall bookstore.
Right.
It was a big one. And my mom asked the clerk if they had Harry Potter, and the clerk looked at her very funnily and was like,
do we have Harry Potter?
No.
Really? Is not like that at all?
They were like, let me look that up.
Harry what now? What is it?
Exactly. They had no idea what
that's
Harry
weird.
Potter was. So they did have it. And my mom got it, and then like 2 months
Guess it
later,
hadn't blown up yet.
yeah, like 2 months later, it was like Harry Potter mania.
Wow.
So it was really cool, and kind of had like a, special connection for especially my sister and mom, that they kind of discovered Harry Potter right before it blew up.
That's pretty cool.
I tried to read the first book around that time. It was after it had gotten really popular, and I was like, all right, maybe I should check it out. But I think I like got through the first chapter and was like, it's interesting, but it didn't grab me. And the next thing Harry Potter history I have was going to the movie with my family, because they wanted, my mom and sister wanted to see it because they had read the book.
Right. But so you weren't a fan even after seeing the first movie. So when did you become a Harry Potter fan?
So I actually liked the Sorcerer's Stone. I thought I was impressed with it, but it still didn't sell me on, I watched Chamber of Secrets, not in the theater, but at home, and I was not impressed with that one. And after that, I skipped Prisoner of Azkaban. Yeah, I know, right? So, I guess I'm going to get a little personal here.
Okay.
Some news for our listeners. I am currently single. I got divorced a couple months ago. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because I actually got into Harry Potter because of my ex-wife.
Okay.
We were dating, and we were at the theater going to go see another movie, and there was a Goblet of Fire poster. And I was like, and she said, "Oh, I want to see that." And I said, "Well, have fun, because I'm not going with you." And I don't know why, but shortly after that, I was home, or I was over at my parents', and my sister was still living with them, and she had a copy of Prisoner of Azkaban. And I was like, well, I've seen the first two, so I'm probably going to get dragged to this Goblet of Fire with my girlfriend, so I guess I better watch Prisoner of Azkaban and catch up so I know what's going on. And my goodness, Prisoner of Azkaban blew me away. I was like, wow, I really want to see Goblet of Fire now. And Goblet of Fire was... that blew me away even more. That's my, to this day, favorite Harry Potter film. And after that, I was like, oh, well, the fifth book was the only one available out at that time, 1 through 5. So 6 and 7 hadn't been
released yet. Yeah.
And I was like, well, I want to know what happens after Goblet of Fire, so I'm going to go and read Order of the Phoenix. And my ex-wife said, no. You have to read all of them. Read the first book. And I was like, well, I've seen the movie. And she's like, no, it doesn't matter. You need to read the book. And I was like, fine. So I did, and boy, am I glad I did, because even having seen the movie, reading the book was such a joy and pleasure, even knowing what had happened, because there was so much more in the book that wasn't in the movies. And J.K. Rowling is just an amazing writer, so she just made it so fun to read. So that's my Harry Potter history right there.
Nice. That's funny, because it seems like I guess you could say you gave Harry Potter a chance earlier than I did, but I got into it sooner than you did.
You did, because I remember when we were rooming together, and we were talking about the Lord of the Rings movies, and they actually were coming out around the same time.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
And I remember mentioning Lord of the Rings to you, and you're like, I like Harry Potter better. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
That was before I got into Harry Potter, so.
Right. And that was really kind of before I gave all well, you know, we've talked about Fellowship and whatnot, and I gave those movies a chance in the theater, but I just didn't. I liked them, and I appreciated them, but I didn't love them like a lot of people did.
Yeah. Well, you had no connection to the genre.
Right, and I had never read the books or anything like that.
Yeah.
So the Harry Potter books came out while we were in high school, and I was one of those kids that, you know, didn't like things that were loved by everybody else. You know what I mean? Like stuff that was like loved kind of by mainstream audiences, I was too cool for. I didn't. So when Harry Potter kind of blew up and there was that Harry Potter mania like you were talking about, I was like, nah, not interested. I had a couple friends who were into it. One friend was named Andrew, and I remember he had like a Harry Potter like track, or maybe it was like a Gryffindor track jacket or something. You know, it was. And I just was like, Harry Potter. I was like, I just don't care. Harry Potter's for losers. You know, I don't know. I didn't even give it a chance, you know. And the only reason I didn't like it was just because everybody loved it. And I remember when the movie came out, I saw like a friend at the theater, and I was like, what are you going to see? And she was like, Harry Potter. And I was like, oh. And I just I didn't even bother with it. And then there was one year, I think the first and second movie had already come out, and I was about to go on a family vacation to Illinois. So I was going to be in the car for a long time. And my friend Andrew was like, just take the first book with you on the trip and just read it on the trip. And if you don't like it after that, you know, I won't bug you about it anymore, type of thing, you know? And I was like, fine. So he gave me Sorcerer's Stone, and I read it in the car. And by the time we got to Illinois, I was begging my mom and dad to stop at Walmart so I could buy book 2. So I was hooked after that first book. And I don't know if I went ahead and bought like all 5, because I don't remember. It was probably about the same thing. It was like the third movie hadn't come out yet, but I think either the 4 or 5 books had so far. And I know I read the second book on that trip. And then as soon as I got back into town, I had just started working at Blockbuster. I just got hired at Blockbuster. And so I immediately went to Blockbuster and bought the first, I think it was the first 2 movies. If the second one wasn't out on DVD yet, it was about to be, and I bought it right when it came out. I don't remember, but I know I bought the first one and watched it and really liked it. And so then I saw the third movie through the 8th movie. I saw all those in the theater. And I read all the books. And I've actually been meaning to reread the books. I've reread Prisoner of Azkaban a couple years ago. That's my personal favorite of the series.
It's close to mine. It's right behind Goblet of Fire. They're both like almost tied.
Yeah. So because I've only read like books 4, 5, and 6, and 7. I've only read those once each. So I would like to go back and reread those books, but I just haven't done it. There's so many books I still have to read that they always just kind of keep getting put on the back burner. But so yeah, so I didn't see this in the theater. I had no interest at the time, but saw it and have seen it multiple times on DVD since then. So I wish I had seen it in the theater. I wish that I had not been that stupid kid who was too cool for it, you know, and didn't give it a chance.
Yeah, it was a neat experience, especially with me not being a fan, and like kind of like you. I was pretty much in the same boat where I was kind of rolling my eyes at everything Harry Potter, but it was just, I don't know, it was a neat experience, and not having knowledge of what was going to happen, you know, made it just kind of the plot twists even more enjoyable.
That, you know, I watched this movie fairly close to finishing the book, so I remember comparing it to the book pretty well. Same with the second book and even the third book. But I feel like as the later movies came out, I had already read the books, and so I had kind of forgotten what had happened.
Yes.
And so the later movies, I remember, you know, almost kind of being surprised by them because I just honestly couldn't remember what happened in the book. But the first movies, that didn't happen for me. I remember comparing, like, especially in this movie, towards the end when they're doing all the, they're having to go through all the rooms and solve all the puzzles. there's more puzzles I remember in the book than there are in the movie, and so I remember being a little disappointed that they didn't include this one puzzle or whatever, that type of thing. But I still love the movie. I think it's a really good adaptation of the book.
Yeah, that's actually one of my notes, is not necessarily about the adaptation, but how great of a movie this was as an introduction into, the wizarding world.
Yeah.
It's so family friendly.
Mm-hmm.
But it's enjoyable, like just on all levels for everyone. It's just a good movie. It's campy.
Yeah, and this, and I think my one big criticism of it is the CGI doesn't hold up. But honestly, I think it's just the CGI of some of the early 2000s movies. Some obviously early 2000s movie has really good CGI, but like especially when they're fighting the troll, or when Neville goes off on his broom and he loses control, it just has that kind of cartoony, rubbery look to it.
Yeah,
and
it does.
That happens a couple times throughout the movie. But that's something that happened in Spider-Man, which was released a year later. It's just something that I think the early 2000s CGI just wasn't as good as it is now, obviously 20 years later. But at the same time, like you think about Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, and I don't feel like it had that issue. And that
I was
going to
say, Fellowship of the Ring, like the troll in that is pretty dead on.
Yeah.
Like even today, it's, you definitely can tell CGI, but it holds up pretty well.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess that's just the difference. I don't know who did the CGI for this movie, but I guess that's just the difference between
Chris Columbus.
Weta and Chris Columbus did it himself. The director did the CGI himself. That's impressive then, actually. But no. So yeah.
So speaking of Chris Columbus, he directed this and he directed Chamber of Secrets.
He did.
And then later on, I don't know why, but he wasn't directing anymore. Do you know what the reason was behind that?
I don't know if he just decided 2 was enough and he decided to move on. I don't know.
Crazy. Like,
yeah.
I'm done directing one of the biggest box office hits of our time.
I don't know. In a way, like I think he did a really good job with this movie, and Chamber of Secrets is a decent adaptation too. It's a little on the longer side. It's one of the longest, if not the longest, Harry Potter movie. But I'm kind of glad he left because I really like some of the changes that were made in the later films. Obviously, Dumbledore was replaced, but that was because Richard Harris, the actor who played him in this movie in Chamber of Secrets, passed away.
Right.
But I also like just the little differences he kind of made with the Hogwarts grounds, and just some little kind of character changes and stuff he brought to the film. But yeah, no, I kind of understand that thought process. Like if I was Chris Columbus, I'd probably would have directed all of them. And that's essentially what David Yates did. David Yates came on to direct the 5th movie, I think.
Right.
And he did 5, 6, 7, and 8, and Fantastic Beasts 1 and 2.
I didn't know he did Fantastic Beasts.
Yep.
I haven't even seen those. To me, David Yates really confused me because, in my opinion, tied with Chamber's Secrets, maybe. I don't know. Like, we'll get into that, obviously, when we do.
Chamber of Secrets?
Yeah.
Which one? Which David Yates movie are you talking about, though?
Order of the Phoenix.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I felt like was kind of weak.
That's funny because I remember thinking, and I haven't seen it since I saw it in the theater. But I remember thinking Half-Blood Prince was like pretty weak. I remember being pretty disappointed with that one walking out of the theater. And I could be just because I had maybe just read the book and then went to go see the movie. I don't know. I don't remember. But I remember going into 7. I remember going into Deathly Hallows Part 1 thinking, I hope this movie's good. Because I just didn't care for... I think maybe I was a little disappointed with Order of Phoenix, and then I was really disappointed with Half-Blood Prince, so I went into Deathly Hallows with pretty low expectations. I just wasn't sure about David Yates either. And then I really ended up liking Deathly Hallows, both of them. So yeah, I don't know, but I have since rewatched Order of the Phoenix. I rewatched it this year earlier back in quarantine, and I actually liked it. I actually thought it was okay, and I know that there's stuff in the book. Obviously, that's the longest book, and Order of the Phoenix was the shortest movie up until I think the very last movie. So they obviously cut out a whole bunch, and I think that was my biggest beef with it. But now that it's been so many years since I've read the book, I don't remember anything about it. I actually thought the movie was decent. So I'm kind of looking forward to going back and rewatching Half-Blood Prince because maybe I'll enjoy it a little bit more.
Well, I wouldn't say I disliked it. Like, I liked all the Harry Potter movies. So even though I thought it was weak, I just felt like, it wasn't on par with
the others.
And then it's funny because Half-Blood Prince for me I was like, okay, he's
back on track.
he's doing better now.
That's funny.
And then Deathly Hallows Part 1 I was like, wow, how did they take the first half of that and just do so much with it?
Yeah.
'Cause, and we'll talk about Part 2 when we get to it. But so yeah, David Yates, I was really confused after Order of the Phoenix and then finding out that he was going to do Half-Blood Prince, and I was like, why? Like, why did she? Because I'm assuming J.K. Rowling had a
approval,
pretty big, decision chair in that.
Probably, I would assume she probably did. She seems like the type of person with Harry Potter. I feel like she had approval with a lot of different aspects. I'm sure. I don't see her as the type of person that just like, sold the rights and walked away from it.
But then again, it's interesting because I was trying to see who Warwick Davis played in this because I was like, he's Flitwick.
Right.
And I remembered Flitwick being, the younger, like, dark hair and the like mustache and
right, yeah, they changed. That's another one of those changes they made in the later movies. Yeah.
So I found out about that, and I did a little research to figure out why his appearance changed, and apparently that was a director choice. And apparently J.K. Rowling had made a comment that the original way they portrayed Flitwick in the Chris Columbus movies was way off from what she had kind of envisioned him.
Right.
So I don't know.
I do remember when I don't remember if it was when this movie came out or not, but I remember on the artwork for the books, at least the US version, I assume it's probably the same in England. The Harry Potter character has the lightning bolt right in the center of his forehead.
Right.
And I do remember reading that J.K. Rowling requested that they move it for the movie, not make it right in the center, but have it off center. I think she didn't come out and say she disliked that choice for the artwork, but she never intended it for it to be right in the center of his forehead like that.
So I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that was one of like the requests she made for the movies was like, don't put it right in the center of his forehead. So I do think she had a little bit of a hand in some decisions that were made. Obviously, not all of them, because Flitwick looks the way he does in this movie. But Warwick Davis also played one of the
Grimwald
bank goblins.
Yeah,
I think the one that Hagrid talks to.
When they first show up the one at the beginning. Yeah, or at the like desk.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think Chris Columbus did a good job directing this. I think he did I assume it was his approval that made Hogwarts look the way it did. Whoever his production designer, he approved that design. And I think Hogwarts, I'm glad they never changed kind of the main look of Hogwarts, because I think the design of that castle is amazing.
Well, I think it does change a little bit. At least that's what I heard in kind of doing that research on Flitwick, but not, drastically.
Right.
I think, they pretty much kept the feel of it. And the just that's one of the things that really hit me watching this, and just having the, them walking through Diagon Alley, and the score. John Williams, like you and I were discussing this not too long ago about how I would consider this to be John Williams' last iconic piece.
Yeah.
Which was really a treat to be able to get.
Yeah.
When we got it, because how old was he? Like, was he like 70? I guess like he was in his 70s probably.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how old he is now.
I think he's in his 90s.
John Williams was born in, come on, computer, 1932.
So he's 88.
So he was 68.
Okay.
If it was 20 years ago.
So, but like the thing is, he was getting close to 70, and then it felt old, and now we're like, man, he's almost 90 and he's still kicking.
Yeah.
But
well, it's I feel like 68 does not seem that old. That's actually how old like my parents are. So
right.
It's kind of almost crazy to think that he was only 68 when this movie came out, but I think it's just because he's been around for forever. It's like
right.
He just
right. I agree with you. It's kind of like, 68's not that old, but at the same time, for someone that is for their career,
yeah,
that would, if you're not John Williams, you're probably close to the end if you're still doing scores at 68.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, but anyway,
it's past retirement age, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, how many non-iconic composers are doing scores at 70 years old? I don't.
And now at 88.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of it. I mean, Ennio Morricone did scores up until he died, pretty much, which was this year, right?
Right,
last year.
But he's iconic.
Right. Well, you asked how many, and that was the one that came to mind. So, but I can't think of any other ones really that are still, who are, that old, still putting out scores. It seems like a lot of composers now are younger, which filmmaking in general, I feel like, is kind of a young person's game,
Yeah.
And there are obviously still many directors and actors and composers who are older, but it seems like
they got their start young.
Yeah, and it's one of those industries that I feel like is always kind of looking for young talent.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So let's talk about some of the actors, This was obviously the start for Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, and Emma Watson as Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, and Hermione Granger.
Which one plays Harry Potter?
Daniel Radcliffe.
I'm kidding. Yes, Daniel Radcliffe's. Was this his?
As far as I know, it was his first movie.
Wow.
I could look that up real quick, but I'm pretty sure it was. I'm pretty sure it was the first credit for all three of them.
If this was their first movie for all of them, that's just super impressive.
Daniel Radcliffe had 2 credits before Harry Potter. One was a David Copperfield TV miniseries where he played young David in 2 episodes, and then something called The Tailor of Panama where he played a character named Mark, which came out also in 2001.
So he's still pretty fresh.
Yeah,
into the business at this time.
For sure. Now let's check Rupert Grint. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone was his first credit, and Emma Watson, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone was her first credit too. Wow. Yeah, so this was their first movie, basically. And I assume that's probably the case for some of the other child actors. I'm not going to look up everybody, but Matthew Lewis, who plays Neville Longbottom, and
I would imagine that doesn't surprise me.
The Weasley brothers, the twins,
with him, because there is a scene in this that makes me cringe every time.
What scene is that?
It's when he threatens to fight them.
Oh yeah.
Have you not picked up on his acting in that?
It doesn't bother me. I mean, number one, I'm more lenient for child actors.
They're kid. I know, and it's his first movie, sure, but just to me, there's just that moment. I'm just like, oh, like reshoot. But whatever. He gets better later.
Well, that was what I was going to say. Is kind of one of the most amazing things about this movie or this series of movies is that they never had to like recast any of those kids, and obviously they are. You could like Neville Longbottom is a great example. Like he changes so much over the course of the movie. He goes from this, short kind of pudgy looking kid to this tall, lanky guy by the last movie.
That was just by chance.
Right.
Like they couldn't have predicted that that's how he was going to end up growing.
They cast this movie very well, and they got, I'm sure they were all under contract to do all the movies, but stuff happens, over the course of, when did the last movie come out? 2010, 2011, something like that? So it was over the course of 10 years.
Yeah. Gosh.
Stuff happens over 10 years.
Deathly Hallows really that old?
It came out when I was living in California, and I want to say it came out, I can't remember if Deathly Hallows Part 1 came out right when I moved to California, or if that was Part 2.
Yeah, you're probably
I'd have to look it up.
It's probably around that time.
I think the first one was 2010, which is right after I moved to California, and the second one was 2011, which was about a year after I moved there. So, but yeah, I remember there was talk about, or I think maybe one of the special features of the movies or something was talking about possibly replacing the kids because they were worried that they were going to age too quickly, and that would have been a disaster. I think.
When was this?
It was I think it was around Prisoner of Azkaban or maybe around Goblet of Fire or something.
Oh, man.
It would have been terrible.
Oh, I don't even want to think about it.
Right. So yeah, I think they cast it very well.
One of the Crab or Goyle, though, one of them, something happened to them.
One of them changes? I thought they were the same.
No, one of them's not in Deathly Hallows, and I don't remember why. There's a reason, obviously, but I guess we can get into that later.
Sure. What do you think about Richard Harris as Dumbledore?
Fantastic.
Yeah. I know I don't want to talk too much about the other movies. We're talking about Sorcerer's Stone here, but comparing Richard Harris to Michael Gambon, who plays him in movies 3 through 8, who do you kind of prefer as Dumbledore? Really? You like Richard Harris more?
I do. I really wish that we could have seen him continue. Now, I'd really like, Michael Gambon a lot. But, especially in Goblet of Fire. Harry Potter!
Right.
That classic moment. But to me, Richard Harris really brought the gentleness of what Dumbledore was, the grandfather aspect.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And Michael Gambon did not have that, in my opinion. He was more of the, which was, fine, but he was more of the, the authoritarian, I'm, not in a bad way.
Right.
But just, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I was going to say, I agree with you about Richard Harris and the gentleness aspect. Like, Richard Harris plays Dumbledore like somebody that you could have no problem coming up to and talking and
tell your deepest secrets to,
ask questions or whatever. He wasn't like a scary Dumbledore by any means. He was very approachable, it seemed like. You know what I mean? But Michael Gambon he's more of an intimidating Dumbledore,
correct,
in my opinion. He still can, I don't know, he doesn't have the same type of gentleness that Richard Harris obviously has, but I think he plays it he plays it warm at times.
He does, yes.
But I actually kind of like that about Michael Gambon's version of Dumbledore, that he does have that kind of intimidating.
No, I agree. And I wonder if, would we have ever seen that with Richard Harris? I don't know. There's a good chance.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah.
There's a good chance we wouldn't have. But especially with this first movie and the fear of Harry Potter, just basically being thrusted into this world that he has no knowledge of, like the fear that he had to have had, and like confusion and stuff. To be able to have Richard,
but also wonder.
yeah, wonder, yes, but to be able to have Richard Harris's Dumbledore as the guide for him, I think really fits. No,
I agree with you. And I really like, he's kind of got the classic wizard look too. He's got the
right,
the long beard, which Michael Gambon had, but he also has just kind of the classic robes and the classic wizard hat and everything. And
yeah,
it's kind of what I envisioned Dumbledore looking like when I read the books, more so than how Michael Gambon portrayed him. If that makes sense. Well, before I guess, that opening scene, you're introduced to Dumbledore, you're introduced to Professor McGonagall, who Maggie Smith is perfect again as Professor McGonagall. And then you're also introduced to Rubeus Hagrid. Now, we've talked about this with other movies, where we just can't imagine other actors playing these characters. And obviously with Dumbledore, we did get another actor playing the character, so we can imagine what that was like. But I can't imagine. There's several actors, but two in particular that I don't think I could ever see being played by anybody else is Rubeus Hagrid, played by Robbie Coltrane, and Professor Snape, played by Alan Rickman.
Right.
So Hagrid shows up on his flying motorcycle, drops Harry off, and I love the introduction of all three of them, I love that machine that Dumbledore uses to take the light from the
right.
Street lights. I love that whole aspect.
And that was cool because that was like when I told you I sat down and tried to read the book for the first time and didn't get far. That was one of the things, that was one of the parts I read.
Right.
So seeing that for the first time in the theater in the movie, I remembered that and it stood out to me.
Mm-hmm. And then we get introduced to the Dursleys, and I think again the actors who play the Dursleys are just perfect.
Yes.
The actor who plays Uncle Vernon, sadly has since passed away. He passed away back in 2013. Richard Griffiths is his name. And he's one of those actors that's done a lot, but I honestly don't know too many of his.
Well, I was gonna say I think a lot
roles.
of the actors in these movies were British actors.
Well, yeah,
and I mean they all are, but I mean what I mean by that is I think a lot of their following was in England,
right?
So
right. They weren't as famous in the U.S.,
right? So
right,
he probably had a lot more exposure there.
Yeah, and I agree. The one thing I do remember him in was I didn't watch the whole series, but there was a show called Episodes, and it was a British show, but it took place in Los Angeles. And the premise of the show was there was these two British TV show writers. They had a hit show in England, and a U.S. network wanted to do like a U.S. remake of the show, and they brought them over to the U.S. to be showrunners for the show. And it's obviously a clash of culture type thing. They've never dealt with like a U.S. studio before, and all the stupid ideas they bring to it and everything. And the one thing that I really remember is they had this actor in mind for the show, and I can't remember if he had acted on the British version of the show, but they brought him in, and he was going to be the lead character on the show, and it was Richard Griffiths. He came in and he played it very British, and the two British writers love it, but the studio was like, we're not feeling it. And they want to bring in Matt LeBlanc, Joey from Friends. That's who they want to have as like the main character, who couldn't be any more different from this British Richard Griffiths actor. Richard, he wasn't playing himself, Richard Griffiths. He was playing some other fake British actor. But I do remember that, and I thought that was funny. And that's what that whole show is about. Matt LeBlanc was like the lead. I don't know, he wasn't the lead actor, but he was playing himself on that show. It's on Netflix, I think, Episodes. I worked background on it for one episode. I was an extra in an episode. So if you ever watch the show and there's a funeral scene in one of the seasons, I'm somewhere in the background there. So that's what I know Richard Griffiths from. That's what obviously when I think of Richard Griffiths, I think of Vernon Dursley. Dursley?
It's Dursley, I believe.
Dursley.
Yeah.
But I also think about that episodes. Fiona Shaw, who plays Mrs. Dursley. I don't remember her name.
Aunt Petunia.
Oh, yeah, Aunt Petunia. That's right. I remember her from Three Men and a Little Lady. I used to watch that movie as a kid. I don't know. I guess I thought it was funny. And she was in that movie. But again, don't really know her from too much else. But I know that she's probably pretty popular in England.
Right.
And then the kid.
The kid.
Dudley, right? He
Yes.
most recently is in that Netflix movie that came out not too long ago called The Devil All the Time. He's in that. Dudley.
Okay.
He's another one that he changed physically, and I don't think, because Dudley is supposed to always be kind of a overweight character, and that actor, as he grew, was no longer overweight, and so I think they had
in
to
Harry
kind of
Potter
pat him out. He in Order of the Phoenix, he's still a little overweight, but I almost didn't recognize him when I saw the trailer for Devil All the Time, and it took me a while to figure out. I was like, how do I know this guy?
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized it was Dudley.
Interesting.
Yeah. So he's pretty skinny now, I think. But yeah. So the Dursleys.
Fantastic.
Well cast.
Yes, absolutely. And kudos again to Chris Columbus for, just showing us what life was like in their home with Harry Potter and how they treated him.
The cupboard under the stairs.
Yeah, I really like this movie.
Yeah.
It's a good one. And it's
a good, like you said, it's a good introduction to the world.
it's different than, what Harry Potter became.
Mm-hmm.
But for what it is and just an introduction into the world, it's just so good.
Yeah. And it's probably, like you said, probably the most family friendly out of the 8 movies.
Mm-hmm.
I think just like, it gets darker as it goes, but also the characters get older, so it becomes a little bit less family friendly, I guess you could say, as the movies go on. I remember I can't remember what the first PG-13 one was, if it was Goblet of Fire or if it was Half-Blood Prince or what, but they were all PG for a little while up until that point.
I think Goblet of Fire was PG-13.
I think you're right. With the I was about to spoil a moment in Goblet of Fire, but I guess I'll save that for our Goblet of Fire episode whenever we get around to that.
I have no idea what you were going to say, so I'm curious, but we'll save it.
I love the design of Diagon Alley too. I think watching this movie, because have you been to Universal Studios since they've built like Harry Potter Land or whatever they call it?
I have not.
I've been to both. I've been to Universal Studios Orlando and Hollywood, which Hollywood only has Hogsmeade, but Orlando has Diagon Alley and Hogsmeade, I think. And it's watching the movie made me really want to go back to Universal Studios because I just love that whole Harry Potter world, the area of Universal Studios, because it's really like stepping into the movie, and I love the design, like I said, of Diagon Alley, seeing all those shops and how the buildings are almost kind of weirdly crooked and stuff like that. And
especially
got spanked.
Yeah,
and everything. I think it's just really cool.
Yeah, I would love to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that after watching this movie and talking about that with you, like about how my excitement goes up, because honestly, my excitement for Harry Potter has really died since the story concluded. Hence the reason I haven't seen either of the Fantastic Beasts movies. I just don't have an interest. But when I go back and watch the Harry Potter movies, like,
it kind of revives it.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
How good it is, but yeah, to me it's kind of forgotten a lot.
Right. And that's part of the reason why I kind of want to reread the books, because I'm in the same boat. I don't dislike Harry Potter by any means, but I just don't really think about it all that much.
Yeah, I don't either.
And I went and saw the Fantastic Beasts movie, but like, I'm not, I just don't, it's not like I'm just like, Harry Potter, I like, and the Fantastic Beasts movie, I wasn't super excited for him or anything.
Right.
Like I was waiting, every year we knew we were going to get another Harry Potter
right.
movie. We were super pumped about
yes.
it. So yeah, that's like I said, it's part of the reason why I kind of want to reread the books, because I feel like it'll kind of bring back that love for it a little bit more, But yeah, no, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like I wouldn't say my love has died.
Did I say that?
I think you said it has kind of died or something like that. But yeah, it's obviously not in the forefront of my mind, I guess, as much as it once was.
Right. Yeah, there was a time where I would have said Harry Potter was one of my, favorite
franchises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it wouldn't be very high at all.
Right. It's kind of a bummer too. It's kind of the same thing with The Matrix, I guess. Granted the sequels are not as good as the first movie, but it's like once time has gone, I guess it could be said for any franchise, once time has kind of moved on, except for maybe Jurassic Park for us. Once obviously time has moved on, you just kind of move on as well, I guess you could say. But
right.
You know what I was thinking about today too is I
don't know. I'm a big Matrix fan.
Yeah. I'm excited about talking about part 2 and 3 with you, because I rewatched those a few years ago, and let's just say the first one's still my favorite. I
rewatched them not too long ago, and
really?
I will agree with you.
But anyway, I was thinking today actually about how, I didn't get into fantasy until just a few years ago, and for a long time I didn't care about the fantasy genre really. But these books, I guess, would be maybe the first fantasy books that I really enjoyed, because I would consider this the fantasy genre.
I'd say it's a cousin of the genre.
It's just kind of a kid's version. But it has magic, and it has wizards and witches and goblins and dragons, and
it definitely incorporates a lot of the stuff that comes with it. It doesn't have the staples of, what is truly traditional, where you've got swords and
right. It doesn't take place in kind of like a medieval time period and stuff like that, right? Which is probably why I liked it more,
right?
Before I got into the fantasy.
But you do have your dragons and goblins and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The goblins and stuff
Giants
might not be as traditional, but you have giants and it's definitely
Trolls.
got it in there. Trolls.
Are there any moments in this movie that you just dislike?
Neville Longbottom.
Right, the fighting scene. Right, okay. His threat to fight. Right. There's not a scene that I dislike. I just don't, I think the troll scene, the troll in the bathroom, is a little cartoony now.
Yeah.
I don't think it
holds up. But it's
that
still a
well.
Neat scene.
Still a good scene.
Or a concept at least.
Yeah.
And I love Quirrell's
when he runs into the
yes.
the main hall.
The way he says "thought you should know" is with the just
and then just passes out.
That's one of my favorites, actually.
That's good.
So I was gonna say, since we brought up Quirrell, let's talk about the big reveal
about him being the bad guy.
No, the fact that he has Voldemort growing out of the back of his head.
Right. I always thought that was weird.
It is very weird.
I guess it works, but Voldemort kind of being not dead, but not really there either, was something that has always kind of confused me. I don't really know how it works.
Right, and I think I can't remember, but I would almost expect that there's more detail in the books.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. Which is again why I should reread all of the books. But
but I like how like Goblet of Fire kind of utilizes that when Wormtail's like having to carry his body because he's just not ready.
Right.
And so you do have that. Obviously they didn't have a finalized concept as to what Voldemort was going to be.
Right. I thought about that watching that this time.
Yeah.
Like when Voldemort comes back, he's got like the snake.
It's a different actor too. Who is it?
I don't know actually.
It's not
It's not Ralph Fiennes, no.
Right. And he has a nose.
Right, that's what I was going to say. Like his nose looks very different than what it does.
He doesn't even have a nose and
right, no, it's
it's just flat.
Snake kind of slits or whatever.
Right. Which is a way better design.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But he kind of sounds the same. He's kind of got that whisper,
right?
Kind of but commanding voice. So I think they kind of recycled a lot of what this Voldemort portrayed into the Ralph Fiennes version.
Yeah, and I wonder if even Ralph Fiennes. I mean, I'm sure he obviously wanted to make it his own, but I wonder if he took the performance from this movie kind of into consideration for his performance.
I would think so.
Yeah, just for continuity's sake or whatever.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it does kind of sound the same.
Yeah, it
obviously looks different though.
And he kind of acts the same too. Like a little bit. So that was kind of nice to be able to have that bridge and not completely divert from that. And who plays Professor Quirrell?
I think his name is Ian Hart.
He does a fantastic job too. Just in general, like
yeah, I
love. He just comes across as a complete pushover, wimp,
right?
Coward, and then when he reveals he's not, that was also he also had a pretty convincing demeanor about him there. So yeah, he did a great job. Let's talk about Alan Rickman. We didn't really talk about Snape.
Yeah, the late great Alan Rickman. Like I said earlier, I can't imagine anybody else playing Snape. He was perfect, the perfect choice for Snape, and he's easily my favorite teacher of the movies. He's just every time he's on screen, he's just interesting to watch. He's fun to watch.
Yeah.
Even when he's torturing poor Harry Potter, you know what I mean? I mean, he's Alan Rickman. You just like to watch Alan Rickman. So, yeah, I can't imagine anybody else playing it. And I remember hearing a story before he died where he didn't tell the story. Somebody else told the story about him, but or maybe it was right after he died and this story came out. But anyway, this person was out to eat with him, and like there was a group of people or something, and Alan Rickman offered to pay, and I think other people were like, no, we could split it or whatever, like you don't have to pay for the whole thing. And he apparently like looked at them and he was like, please, Harry Potter's paying for this. He was like,
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So I always thought that was kind of funny. But yeah,
he looks so young in this.
Yeah.
Did you pick up on that?
Yeah. I mean, he's not diehard young, but yes.
Right. But compared to, when in the later Harry Potter movies, like you can start to see his age.
Sure. And
when you go back and watch this one, I'm just like, wow, like skin's pretty tight on your face there, Alan.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what really else to say other than I just really like him as Snape, obviously. He's a fantastic actor, and I wish he was still around,
Yeah. How old was he when he passed?
I don't think he was that old. I feel like he was maybe in his 60s or something, but I got to find him here. There's so many actors in this movie.
Yeah, there are.
He was 69 when he died. 2016. It's been 4 years already. Almost 5 years. He died in January of 2016. Hans Gruber, Sheriff of Nottingham.
Yeah.
Professor Snape. Another actor that I really like in this movie, who played him throughout all the movies, was Filch.
Yeah.
He's not a professor. I guess he's like kind of a caretaker.
Yeah, he's a caretaker.
Really like that actor. He was also on Game of Thrones.
Yes, and I immediately when they first showed him on Game of Thrones, I immediately knew who he was. He's very recognizable person.
Very recognizable, and he plays Filch so well.
Yeah,
I really like. He's got a line in this movie. I can't remember exactly what it is now, but it's when the kids are going to detention with Hagrid, and Malfoy says, he's like, "We're going into the Dark Forest. I thought that was a joke." He's like, "There's werewolves out there." And he's like, "Oh, there's more than werewolves." Like, he's like almost like giddy about the fact that he's sending these kids into the Dark Forest, which I think is just
And the
great.
way he delivers that line, too, at the end, he goes, "You could be sure about that."
Yeah. Yeah. That. Yep. So I really like his character. It's not in this movie, I don't think. But he performs a line in one of the movies where he goes, "Oh," he's like, what does he say? I hate when I do this. When I like start the line and then can't remember what he says, but he's like, "We are in trouble now," or something like that. I'm going to cut that whole part out. But,
I don't remember that line at all.
I think it's in Prisoner. I could be wrong. It might be in Chamber, but it's in one of those.
There's also a moment that he has, and I don't think it's in this one. But when he's like, they're in the hall, the grand hall, and Dumbledore is talking about something, and he comes through the door and tries to be discreet about something, but he's like marching.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that, yeah. I don't remember what movie that is either, but that is I do like that. I like, too, just in this movie, I like when again, it's that same scene where he's brought the kids to Hagrid. Hagrid's all like sniffly about, having to let go of his dragon. And he's like, "What if he doesn't like it in Romania?" And it cuts to Filch, and he just does this huge eye roll.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh my God." I thought that was funny too. We didn't talk about Draco Malfoy. The actor who plays him, I can't remember his name, Tom Felton. What do you think about him?
Fantastic.
Yeah. He's a little over the top in this movie, I would say. But it's him as a kid, I think. It's kid acting a little bit. And I think he gets stronger as the movies go on.
Yes, he does. Where do you think he overacted in this?
I don't remember anything specifically. I just know, when he's being mean to Harry, he's blah, 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 Potter, and stuff like it's just it's just a little bit of overacting. But like I said, it's just it's that child overacting that I don't really mind. And
it it just kind of fits the movie, I think.
Yeah, no, it does. Movie. I agree. Yeah. I mean, I could say the same thing about Emma Watson in this movie. She's a little over the top in certain scenes too, with her, the very first time we meet Hermione when they're on the train.
She's a jerk.
She comes across as not very likable. So
she kind of keeps that though, like, and you're saying it wrong.
Yeah,
it's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's partly her character, but I also feel like she gets stronger as the movies go on too. She's not as, I don't know. I don't know how you would describe that. She's not as much of a jerk. She's not as
arrogant.
Whatever. Arrogant, yeah, or something. I mean, even Ron calls her a nightmare in this movie. So. And she learned.
They end up getting married.
They do. I think about that every time I watch this movie now with Ginny. Ginny has like one line in this movie right before Harry goes to platform 9 3/4. She goes, "Good luck," and I'm like, "That's your future wife, Harry." I say that to the TV, not really.
I am going to just say it now. I will never feel differently about this, and I know lots of people agree with me, and there are maybe a few that liked the way it turned out, but I obviously wanted Harry and Hermione to
Mhm.
get together. And to this day, still, I think that was the way to go. But
I don't mind the way it turned out. I don't know if Harry necessarily needed to marry Ginny Weasley, but I like that Ron and Hermione got together. Although they're so different that it's
I honestly believe
hard to imagine them together. But
I honestly believe that J.K. Rowling didn't put Harry and Hermione together because it was too obvious.
that could be. That very well could be.
That's my opinion.
It was what was expected, so she wanted to
Yeah.
change it up, which is very possible. I could definitely see that. Let's talk about some of the puzzles, the tests, like Fluffy, the three-headed dog. That's some CGI that is not bad, but could be better.
Yeah. I have an alert on my phone that is dogs barking,
Mm-hmm.
and right when they what's his name?
Fluffy?
Fluffy. Right when Fluffy, finished drooling on Ron,
Yeah.
and they were jumping down, and the dogs started barking. My phone alert went off, and it was perfect.
That's funny.
No, that's a cool little thing about having what are they called? Cerberus. I was close.
Cerberus.
Greek mythology.
Oh. So I remember in the book, each of these puzzles was put in place by one of the teachers. Because I think they're in the book, one of the puzzles that's not in the movie, I think, is a potions puzzle. And that was obviously Snape's.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I don't remember whose puzzle is whose. Like, I don't know who.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah. I don't remember what teacher had the chessboard and what teacher had well, it was probably, she's not really in this movie, but remember the teacher that does like the botany classes or whatever? I think it's in the next movie. They've got those screaming plants.
Right.
She's probably the one that did
the devil's snare or whatever it's called.
Yeah. And then I don't know who did the keys with the broom. I'm not sure, but those are the 4 puzzles we see in the movie. Really, is the dog, which was Hagrid, I assume. The devil's snare, the keys, and then the chessboard. And the chessboard is a great puzzle to do because not everybody probably knows how to play chess that well. But also that test had to, unless you're just, and Ron, we kind of get the idea that Ron is a very good chess player, but chess can be a game that takes a long time.
Yeah.
So that could have taken them a while to get through that room. But, and it seems like, we see only a montage really of the game.
So a couple questions. Why are there 2 pieces missing for Ron or for Harry and Hermione to conveniently replace? And 3, why isn't there a 3rd piece missing and Ron gets to ride on a knight?
Yeah. I don't know. I should have looked. I assumed that there were 2 pieces missing and that the knight himself was missing from the horse. But there's usually 2 knights on a chessboard for each side, right?
Yes.
So there should have been another. If there was another knight that had a rider, that's what I would go with.
Fair enough, but
I don't know. I don't remember seeing the other knight, so I don't know.
So, but Ron's kind of cheating because when the queen stabs him, it stabs
the horse. Right. Well, you can't stab Ron Weasley. That would, number 1, be terrifying for the children in the audience. And number 2, he's a main character. He has to make it through movie 8. So we got to have him around. He could have been healed in the infirmary or whatever they call it in Hogwarts. But you're right. I like Professor Quirrell. It was just him. So the question is, does the chessboard recognize how many people have walked into the room and then those pieces disappear? Like they set up 3 empty spots on the board?
Yeah, that makes sense because he selects what pieces they're going to be and then they go to them and those pieces are missing. So
Right.
Yeah, we'll say that.
So when Quirrell walked in, he just probably chose what piece he wanted to be and then...
Why would you not pick a queen?
I don't know. Maybe Quirrell did. We didn't see it.
We've got some major problems here.
Plot holes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like, someone would be a queen. But I guess it doesn't matter because he commands where the pieces go anyway. So why do you even have to... Anyway.
Why do you even have to be one?
Well,
I
so
don't know.
you can die if you make a mistake.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, it was good of Ron to sacrifice himself since he was riding that horse rather than having Hermione do it or something and her get stabbed or impaled with a sword. That would have sucked. I don't remember because it's been so long since I read the book, but I also feel like Ron obviously kind of went down in the chessboard, and I feel like I remember Hermione and Harry moving on, and then there was some reason why she ended up... She got stuck in one room and Harry was able to continue. Because she just stayed with Ron in the movie. She could have gone into the next room with Harry, but she didn't. And I don't really know why she didn't, other than the fact that they just needed Harry to go into that room by himself.
Yeah. Good question.
And I think it's explained in the book, but I don't recall. But yeah, so then he goes into the room and Professor Quirrell's in there looking at the mirror of...
Right. So that's another question I had in my notes was, why, if you're looking to that mirror,
yeah,
you're supposed to see not a reflection, right?
Well, you see yourself, but you see like what you desire the most. So that's like when Ron saw himself, he saw himself as the, holding the Quidditch cup or whatever, and being the captain of the Quidditch team and stuff like that.
So you still see the regular reflection, because I was like, why is Voldemort's face reflecting in Harry Potter's vision of what he wants the most?
Right. Actually, I don't know. That's a good question, because when Harry brings Ron to the mirror, we don't really see the reflection, so I don't know if you can see Harry standing there next to him or not. I don't know.
Yeah. Also, how... I remember this being explained, and I can't remember if it was in the movie or not. I missed it if it was, but how did he get
the
stone physically?
Yeah, so Dumbledore tells him at the end of the movie that the spell that he put on the mirror was if anybody was looking for the stone,
that's right,
but didn't want to use it, then they would find it.
That's right.
So Voldemort was looking for the stone because he really wanted to use it.
Yeah.
So he wasn't allowed to get it. But Harry was just looking for the stone to keep it from Voldemort, not use it. And so it was given to him.
Brilliant idea, Dumbledore. Brilliant.
Well, he even says that. He goes, one of my better ideas. And he says, and just between you and me, that's saying something. So yeah, that was kind of cool. And then, he touches Quirrell, and Quirrell, like, it has this effect on him where his flesh starts burning off, which is pretty cool. And also
very Last Crusade-esque.
Yeah, a little bit. That's another movie we haven't talked about yet. I think we've only talked about Raiders, haven't we? We haven't talked about Temple of Doom yet.
That's right.
Yeah, and so Harry seizes the opportunity and just grabs Quirrell by the face and essentially just kills him, which is essentially self-defense, because Quirrell and Voldemort were going to kill Harry.
That's right. They did put a ring of fire around the room so that he could not leave.
Although I did have one, watching it this time, I was like, Voldemort tells Quirrell to kill him, and so Quirrell, like, flies towards him and starts choking him, and Harry drops the Sorcerer's Stone. It's, like, just out of reach of his hand. And if Quirrell had just looked over, he would have been like, oh, there it is. Mm-hmm. And he could have picked it up and been like, got it. Do I still need to kill this kid? But he didn't. He was just focused on the task at hand and didn't see the stone at all. But that's when Harry learns that he can burn his flesh off. So then Voldemort is still around. He's kind of that ghost at the end of the movie. And
then he goes through Harry Potter's body.
Yeah, I didn't really understand the point of that.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, to me, I was like, my immediate thought was, in fact, I'm sure when I first watched it, was like, did he just possess Harry?
Right. Is he going to be Voldemort in the second movie?
Right.
Yeah, but that's not the case at all. So I really don't. I mean, it was a cool shot, but I don't really understand the point of it. Didn't really understand what the purpose of that was, because he just flies off after that. So yeah, I don't know. Other than it knocked Harry out, I guess, because he wakes up in the infirmary.
Right.
And they just needed that to happen. I didn't take very many notes for this movie, but one of the notes I took has to deal with the end of the movie. But before I get to that, actually, one of the other notes I wrote was when they're first learning how to fly on their broomsticks, and Neville gets injured, and the teacher takes him off, and she tells everybody not to do anything. Draco goes off into the sky, and he taunts Harry and kind of, dares him essentially to fly after him. And Harry starts to do it, and Hermione tries to talk him out of it. She's like, "No, you heard the professor. You'll get in trouble and blah, 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 blah." And he takes off, and Hermione goes, "What an idiot."
Yeah.
I love her delivery of that line. It cracks me up every
when
time.
I first introduced my kids to this, years ago, they pointed that line out, and that was like, they loved that.
Yeah, she did a good job of that. And I don't know, I don't know if that was her or if that was Chris Columbus directing her that way, but it was pretty good.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about the Quidditch match. What do you think about Quidditch? That was the first time we'd seen live action Quidditch.
It's fun, for a new experience, I guess.
I'll be honest, I've never understood Quidditch, because you can get a whole bunch of points by throwing that ball through the hoops, but then whoever gets the snitch
gets that's
150
actually
points, and
right.
you pretty much win the game.
Right. Well, if the 150 points, I think there's a moment in one of the books where someone gets the snitch and still doesn't win because it wasn't enough points.
Really?
But then at that point, what's the point of getting it?
I don't know. I mean, it ends the game.
Why? Yeah, it does end the game, and you get 150 points. But yeah, so it's not an automatic win. It's just 150 points.
But it basically is an automatic win, because I don't know how many points. I can't remember how many points you get for throwing the ball through the hoop, but it's not that many.
No, it's not.
So you'd have to get
150 is what compared to what you score by getting goals. Yeah, 150 points is ridiculous amount.
Right. So I've never really understood the rules of the game, but also I've never really cared about the Quidditch matches in the movies that much.
I don't like them later on.
Yeah.
In this one though, I like it because it's kind of an introduction to another thing that shows you
what Harry's having fun.
Yeah, and what this world is, and
right, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, later on, I agree. Don't really care.
So the only other notes I took have to do with the end of the movie during the final moments where they're in the Grand Hall, like you said. I forget what the name of that hall is, or maybe it is just the Grand Hall. And Dumbledore is awarding points.
and I cheats.
I wrote, man, he's such a jerk to basically say Slytherin is in first place. But wait, I'm gonna give more points to Gryffindor. So
and then he gets some, and also wasn't Dumbledore? Wasn't he in Gryffindor himself?
He might have been.
I'm pretty sure he was in Gryffindor.
So he's playing favorites.
Yeah. And then in the very last thing, he's like, "Oh, I tied you with Slytherin," and then, like you said, but wait, Neville Longbottom. 10 points.
Yeah. Which that was the other note I wrote. I was like, Neville only gets 10 points. These other three kids broke all the rules. He gives 50 points or something to Ron for playing a good game of chess.
Right.
but Neville only gets 10 points for standing up to his friends. I was like, that's ridiculous. So I have a little beef with that part, but yeah, I just thought it was kind of mean on Dumbledore's part to
yeah.
say.
And then he's like, I think there's a need for change in decoration.
Just rubbing it in even more.
And if you noticed, the other three houses, Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, and Ravenclaw, like all throw up their hats when it's announced and celebrate. And Slytherin's like over there by themselves.
I guess they're just I guess they all just hate Slytherin enough that they just don't want Slytherin to win. Even Snape, he's like clapping. He's not smiling or anything, but he's clapping when Slytherin is announced first place. And then when Dumbledore's like, although there's some last minute points to award, he does like a slow turn. He's like, what? Are you really doing this right now? So even Snape was like, are you serious?
Yeah. Let's all be honest. Slytherin won.
Slytherin won.
What house would you pick?
Well, when I went to so in California, when you go to, there's the Warner Brothers Studios tour you can take, and they have a museum. It's one of my favorite parts of the tour because on the bottom floor they have like I guess during normal times it would be costumes from different TV shows and movies. The last time I was there, I think they were doing like a Batman 75th. Or no, last time I was there, it was like Justice League. So they had like a bunch of, they had like the Henry Cavill Superman costume, the Batman, Ben Affleck costume, Wonder Woman costume. They had like all the Aquaman costume, all that stuff. But like before, they would have like, they had some like Casablanca costumes. They had, obviously the superheroes are big for Warner Brothers. So they had like, I remember seeing the Batman Forever Robin costume, which was cool. They had like the Dark Knight, Bane, Catwoman, Joker. They had all those costumes, which is pretty cool. But if you go upstairs in the museum, everything upstairs is Harry Potter. And one of the things you can do up there is they don't put it on your head, but they hover it above your head, and you get sorted into a house. So I sat down, and the sorting hat put me in Gryffindor, which I'll take. I don't know.
How do they determine?
It's random.
Oh, okay.
It's just on random. I can't remember where my wife got placed, but I got put in Gryffindor. My wife likes to. She thinks she's a Ravenclaw, and I think if I were to be actually sorted, I'd probably be a Hufflepuff. But I'm happy with Gryffindor too. Anything but Slytherin.
Yeah.
What about you?
So my daughter asked me that. And I think I would pick Hufflepuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know anything about the houses. And I think I would pick, except that Slytherin is evil. And Gryffindor is good. I think I'd pick Hufflepuff just because I think they're the least popular house.
Right. There's like I think there's online quizzes you can do, like what Harry Potter house do you belong in, and you kind of fill out the quiz and it'll tell you. I don't know how accurate that is either,
right.
but I think Ravenclaw, part of the reason I think my wife likes Ravenclaw is because I think Ravenclaw is supposed to be, even though Hermione's in Gryffindor, Ravenclaw is supposed to be kind of like the scholarly house kind of.
Right.
Gryffindor is supposed to be like the brave, courageous, whatever, and then Hufflepuff I think is just more maybe I like to think Hufflepuff's more maybe kind of the creative kids. You know what I mean? The theater kids. I don't know. But I can't remember exactly like what qualities are supposed to be in each house.
Right.
I do remember Brave is Gryffindor.
Okay.
So I don't know. But when she got sorted by the sorting hat, she didn't end up in Ravenclaw, so she thought it was incorrect when we were at the tour.
Gotcha.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance, if you're ever in California, you should do the Warner Brothers tour. It's pretty cool. I like it.
Okay.
And you'll see some cool Harry Potter stuff.
I need to make sure I either watch a movie or read a book before I go, because otherwise I won't care.
You're there and you're like, upstairs is all Harry Potter. You're like, nah, I'm going to stay down here. I don't even want to go up the stairs. It's not worth it. Read a book on the flight. The Sorting Hat is another thing I actually meant to talk about. The Sorting Hat is not how I envisioned it when I was reading the books, but I love the design of it. I love that,
it's awesome.
Yeah, his eyes and mouth are like wrinkles.
The wrinkles,
in the hat.
yeah,
like it's just perfect.
It is. It's
I love
great.
it.
And the voice is it Bill Nye?
Oh, I don't know.
It sounds like him.
Nope.
And
Somebody
he's later
named
in
Leslie Phillips.
Okay, because I was gonna say Bill Nye's later. Who is he?
I don't recall.
He's like one of the ministry. I think he's like one of the head ministry. Like, isn't he the prime minister for the Ministry of Magic or something?
He might be. I don't remember at all.
Anyway.
Another great actor in this movie, though, John Cleese, is Nearly Headless Nick.
Yes.
The ghosts have a different design to them. They look different in the later movies, too, don't they?
I just don't think they're even really in the movies later.
Oh, well, that could be.
Like, they pretty much just kind of throw Nearly Headless Nick away.
Moaning Myrtle is in the later movies, but...
She is, and she's the same, I think. Okay.
Obviously, we're just going to have to rewatch all these movies. So,
yeah.
But I like Nearly Headless Nick in this movie. I think he's cool. I like the ghosts, seeing them fly around.
Yeah.
And the paintings,
But it does have that campy feel to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. It's part of the
Charm.
movie. Yeah. For just this particular one. There is a scene an opening of a scene where John Cleese is with another ghost, and they're going, and it's just such a crappy place to. I mean, it's not like it fits for trying to get you for what he's saying to stand out.
Right.
But they're like getting ready to cross the hallway, and he just goes, "Did you hear that Harry Potter is
the new seeker for Gryffindor?" Yeah.
I was like, anyway.
All right, John. Well, I think it's about time to rate this movie. What would you give this movie?
I didn't even think about it, honestly.
I'll go first then, if you'd like.
Okay.
For me, this is a 4 out of 5 star movie. It's good. It's not perfect, and I debated giving it 4.5 stars, but I think I probably will save that rating for maybe some of the later installments. So yeah, for me, it's a solid 4 out of 5. I really enjoy it. I think it's entertaining. It's just not quite as good as some of the other Harry Potter movies.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, that I wonder if that would have changed if you didn't know how the Harry Potter movies
maybe
were going to progress.
I mean, if you had asked me back in 2002 or whatever, when I first saw this movie, right after reading the book, I probably would have given this movie 5 stars.
Right.
So
right.
But yeah, right now as it stands, I'd probably give it 4.
I'm gonna mirror you and say the same thing. I'm gonna say 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
If I were to slide any one direction, it would be towards the 4.5.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna stick with 4.
Cool. Well, we'd love to know what you think about Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. You can always leave a comment on cinemaheroes.com or reach out to us on Facebook, facebook.com/SM and SM podcast. You can always tweet at us on Twitter @CinemaHeroes. That's our Instagram handle as well. And if you're watching this video on YouTube, you can leave us a comment on the in the comments below the video. Also, subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. I said that already, but I'm going to say it again. But I think that about wraps it up for this episode. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Belzell.
As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing.